Okay, welcome back to the show, guys. I am here in Melbourne, of all places. I'm a little jet lagged, but I'm here because I said I was going to be here. I'm very excited because today I have a good friend, an amazing collaborator. We're collaborating on a few things at the moment, two things, and a genius writer and a fellow Oasis fan. You know, Oasis is, if you guys do not know what I mean, get out from under the rock. Oasis are back. I'm here with Lucy Kobier from the Self Care Academy. She is a best-selling author. She is a coach, and she's also the creator of the new book, the co-author book, As If by Magic, which is a collection of stories of, people who have followed through on their intuition to create, amazing results in their life. And we've got a whole collection of stories in the book. I'm going to be in there with my story, and there's all of, different themes. It seems like of what people are writing about and how their intuition has impacted them. So yeah, very excited to share more about that. But Lucy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is round two. We did round one in my hostel in Mallorca, and there was people like screaming in the background. Well, they weren't screaming; they were just making a lot of noise. And um, I wasn't clear enough on the theme of my show back then. But what you shared around writing was gold. And everything that I've been getting personally from just being a part of the group for writing my story, it has been, really, really helpful. And that's why I wanted to have you here to speak about stories and creating your own story, writing it. I want to start back to when, you had your call to start writing. Do you remember when this journey began for you?
Um, forever. Like I think writing's always been something that I've been kind of pretty close to, pretty passionate about. I love the way you can use words to express yourself and express ideas and convey emotion and experiences just in such a really heartfelt way. So for me, I guess writing has always been a big part of what I have loved doing, writing and reading and getting lost in stories and connecting with people through stories. And like you mentioned Oasis earlier, but like the storytelling through lyrics, right, as well, and songwriting, and just the power that it has when you've then got the connection with the music as well. And it's such a powerful synchronicity. I don't know what word we can use there, collaboration in the two. So writing has always been something that I've kind of dabbled around with on the sides. Can still pull out journals from like old poetry and stuff that I wrote back when I was a teenager, and
Wow. Yeah.
short stories and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of always been a forever thing, but never a very serious thing. Like it was just always my private thing that I did on the side.
Yeah.
It was very much for my eyes only. Like this is like my way of expressing myself and processing feelings and emotions and situations and events and that kind of stuff as well. So very big journaler as well. So like just dozens of journals filled with intentional writing, but also unintentional writing as well. So that's just always been a part of my life and my processing and kind of how I connect with my own emotions and process things. But I guess I didn't really take writing seriously until a couple of years ago, where I was kind of like, maybe I actually need to be looking at this and bringing something out to the world. So
I love how you brought up you didn't take it seriously, because while we're on Oasis, what was interesting about the interview that Noel just did for the album, he said that they just made music. They weren't trying to be famous or anything. I want to take you back to when you were, just writing for yourself. Do you feel that helped you develop better as a writer, as opposed to going, oh yeah, writing would be a cool thing to do to make some money? Or
Um, yeah, like it was only ever for enjoyment, right? Like it was never, and even when I went into authoring books and like with the bestseller that I had last year, the book that we're writing now, I've got another one in the train with the publisher as well to put a solo book out next year. It's never been about the money.
mm,
Um,
mm,
like that's a nice byproduct of it. But it's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to write a bestseller and like become a millionaire.
mm,
Uh, there's not that much money in books anyway, surprise.
mm,
Um, but it was, yeah, it was only ever for my own personal enjoyment, really, and
mm.
personal development that writing was ever a thing.
Yeah. And what do you remember there being a moment when you went, um, okay, so you said like a few years ago you went, "Oh, maybe I could take this a bit more seriously and get a deal," or talk me through that moment. What was that when you went, oh, okay, yeah, no, I could go a bit further with this.
Yeah, well, so that was through the back of doing a Land of Plenty. So off the back of a natural success training and doing a Land of Plenty and diving in and seeing that I was expressing myself and connecting with other people through the written word. And it was kind of like, I've got to actually look at that more seriously instead of it just being for me. Like it was very obvious in my Land of Plenty that I was connecting with other people.
Mm,
Like it was a heart to heart connection through the written word. And it wasn't just books as well, like it was songs as well. So it was kind of bringing back that poetic side that I used to do and hadn't done for many years. Because, I became an adult and grew up and stopped having fun. So didn't do the things that I loved doing for so long. But yeah, so it was kind of like when that kind of came up in my Land of Plenty, of kind of like it's your writing that connects your heart with other hearts, and that's how you inspire and empower people. That's where I was kind of like, well, okay, I'll start. So I made a choice out of it and started having this choice about writing and um, connecting with people through this writing process. And so it's not just been limited to the writing and the publication, right? Like, so I've written, yes, I've been published, but also then through this process that you're involved with, right? With it, as if by magic, like I'm connecting with other people, like at the back
mm,
end of writing and
mm,
helping you connect with your heart and expressing your story and the other people that are involved in the book as well. So it's not just about, here's my story and I'm just going to put it out to the world and hope that people are inspired and empowered by it. It's kind of like I want to connect with other people and help them connect with their hearts as well,
mm,
and kind of like
mm.
help draw out their stories and get their stories out to the world too. So it's not just limited to me. There's very much a ripple effect happening.
Yeah, and how cool that it came through in a process like your Land of Plenty, because I feel like when it's in something like that, where you go into a meditation and you're going, okay, you've got that assumption, whatever comes up here is
Mm.
really leveraged. It's yeah, and when I say leveraged, if I follow it, I'm going to grow and magic and all these kind of wonderful things will unfold. But it's it's your heart. It's like, this is not just something I had a dream about. And it's a bit like, well, this could be anything.
Yeah.
It's like whatever's here is really for me. And yeah, so for those of you that are listening that don't know what Land of Plenty essentially is, it is this meditation that we do in the alchemy world, where you connect into your genius and you find out not just writing, but all kinds of things that you would love to create that are true for you to create. I have a question on the back of that. When you saw that theme of connecting people to their hearts, and you connecting with their hearts through words, and I mean, you said it more eloquently than I just said it there. But I know for me, when this happened for my songwriting,
Mm.
from just being a guy that wrote raps over beats to seeing myself on the piano, when it's like, you've got an enchanting impact through your emotional songs. There was a change. It was like, oh, okay, and it was like leaving how I used to do it behind to go in that direction. Did you experience any of that when you did the Land
Yeah,
of
well, I
Blue?
think because I hadn't written for so long, it was kind of like a bringing it back again. So
Okay.
because my writing in the past had been, as I was saying, like quite personal and very much like a me connecting with my own heart kind of situation, right? But I'd parked that for so long. So when it kind of came back up again, it was like, oh, that's kind of cool because yes, I do love writing. So I'm excited to see where this goes. But then also it was like, this is a new space because it had never been about other people before. So
Mm,
kind of being open to it and pursuing it in a different way to what I had was different. But because I'd had such a break, it wasn't kind of like, oh, I'm pivoting
mm,
how I was doing that. So
mm. If so, for a writer that's listening to this, songwriters, authors, journalists, I don't know if journalists listen, maybe journalists do. Uh, I had to throw that in there. Do you have a preference for when you're writing something for a book? Do you like to go, okay, I'm imagining who this is for, or do you like to be in a state where it's like, no, no, I'm just writing what I'm getting, like for me?
Um, so both. So it depends what the context of the writing is for.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I'm writing because with the intent of it being for an audience and for like instruction and help and inspiration, then it's kind of like, how do I want my readers to feel at the end of reading this?
Mm,
And then I kind of tune into that. I've got like an idea of what I want to write about, but I kind of tune into like, well, how do I want them to feel when they're finished reading it? And so that I kind of tune into that and then kind of write from that space. But then there's still a space where writing is still super personal to me. So I'll still just write from where I'm at and with
mm,
what I'm going through. And then that might see the light of day or it might not. But
mm,
um yeah. So with the book, that was very much like, what do I want? Like I had a story and a concept and a premise that I was wanting to share, but it was very much from the point of like, okay, well, how do I want people to feel when they're finished reading this? What do I want them to take away from reading this?
mm.
And then kind of stepping back to make sure that that's delivered in the story, um, which is very different to just me sitting down and kind of connecting with my own heart and kind of like, what do I need to get from this?
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because I think that's why a lot of people get stuck at times when they're writing because they don't have that clarity from the beginning. Like,
Mm,
what's this about? You know, is it for me? Is it for someone else? And so, they'll write, and then it's like they get stuck. It's like, oh, I'm writing this book, but now I've got writer's block, or I don't know where it's going. And when you ask people that were clear from the start, there's always just this flow to what they're
yeah,
doing throughout it.
yeah. And I think it's kind of sitting down, like, and it's with everything. It's not just writing, right? It's like knowing what your intention is before you start. And
Mm.
if you know what your intention is, like what you're wanting to get out of it, it always flows better because
Yeah.
you're going somewhere, you know where you've kind of got to get to, even if it's a vague awareness of what the intention is, right? It doesn't have to be crystal clear, like it's a direction that you're
Mhm.
heading towards. And so um knowing that and being able to work towards that, I think helps you get through those writer's blocks, through the resistance, through the tension, because it's like, that's where I'm going. So it's kind of like whenever you start to feel the resistance or the writer's block or the what am I doing? You've got something to anchor back to. And
Yes.
so that's where having that intention and awareness of kind of like what you're wanting to do and produce by the end is super
Mm.
helpful.
I think it's such a good point that you made where it's like, yeah, if you have that focal point to come back to, you can always overcome
Mm.
resistance or tension when you're writing. It doesn't become this big, oh, I'm in writer's block and I don't know what to do. And you realize it's just part of it.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting how you're saying like you were like this is rubbish, but your friend really liked it because there's stuff that I've written where I'm just like, oh my God, no one's ever going to want to read this. This is disgusting. Like, ugh, just just gross. But then that's like what gets amazing feedback and like, oh my God, I love how you said that. And it's like, oh, okay. I was like way off. So don't
Yeah.
trust yourself.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, don't
So
self-censor yourself would actually be the better way to put that. Not no trust, but the self-censoring of kind of like, well, I think this is rubbish, so I'm not going to put it out there. When you've written it with the intent of it being for a different audience, it's kind of like just go with that, right? And put
mm,
it out there.
when you started back, because you were doing this from a young age, so when you came back, you did the Land of Plenty, you got the downloads. This is okay. This is what my writing's about. Um, what were your early challenges in going in that direction? Were there any challenges, or was it just kind of okay? I'm on. This is my heart. This is my intuition flying, or was there like something that came up that was a bit of a challenge for you?
So for ages, it was just a choice that I was making every day, right? So it was just a choice that around writing and books and connecting with other hearts. And I just started writing again myself for myself, kind of moving beyond what I had been doing, like just kind of like connecting again with that kind of process and getting back in touch with writing and being in the flow of writing. And not really sure how it was going to turn into anything, where it was going. I wasn't actively looking for anything. I was kind of open and aware, but just not, I wasn't pursuing opportunities or anything like that, like sending manuscripts out to publishers or trying to force anything to happen. Because nothing had kind of gotten to that point anyway, but it was kind of like still there, still very much a very obvious choice, still very much significant part of my awareness of where I was going, but not really sure about what it was going to look like. And then it was that I ended up getting a cold DM into my messenger inbox one day. God, we love those, don't we? But this one actually piqued my interest. I actually read it. And it was, they were looking for co-authors for this book about women discovering their self-worth and finding their own like empowerment and kind of that sort of stuff in their journey. And that's exactly the journey that I was on at that time with Self-Care Academy and kind of rediscovering my own self-care, own self-love, and kind of how when you got those sorted out, everything else in life kind of falls much better into place as well. So I was kind of very much aligned with what else I was doing in life, plus this opportunity to be in this book was very much, yeah, there was just alignment between what I was doing outside of writing with this opportunity to write as well. So I was kind of like, oh, this is unexpected, but awesome. Being a cold DM, I was like, proceed with caution because is this a scam? They just want my money. They're going to run. Because like we're in this amazing world now of like self-publishing and hybrid publishing, and it's so much more accessible and available to people. But that means there's also some not so great players in the world as well
The other
who are
side, yeah.
taking money and not publishing books. And so it was like a little bit of kind of like, oh, I'm curious. It's piqued my interest. But also, is this a
Yeah.
scam? Because it kind of sounds too good to be true. And I want it to be true, but also don't scam me. So kind of proceeded with caution and chatted with them and kind of sorted out and did my due diligence before signing on to the project, which in part did end up being a scam, but in part wasn't as well. So the publisher was all legit. The publishing house is amazing, and they're who I've gone on to do additional books with now. But the process for enrolling the authors into this project that I was involved in, the lead author had outsourced it to a different company who did not have the most scrupulous practices.
Mm.
So they ended up running off with some people's money and not doing the right thing by the people that they had signed up and the lead author. But the publishing house was amazing. They just stepped straight in. They picked everything up. They still published the book. It still all proceeded. So it was kind of like, yes, there was a scam, but also it was true. So a bit of column A, a bit of column B. But yeah, it all ended up landing and coming good in the end. So
I mean, that's just massive because when you think about it, when you're beginning with a new endeavor, choice, music, book writing, whatever it is, right? You get hit with like a scam initially, like you hear so many people, I started the business and then early on this happened and then that's it, finished.
Yeah.
No more product, no more marketing. Or, I did my first gig and it didn't go so well and I just decided it's not for me. But you continued, obviously, and it set up other deals. So
Yeah.
before we go there, talk to me about that moment when you realized that it was a scam. And obviously those feelings come up because it's like F them and whatever. Um, how did you how did you get through that? Because being new, being fresh, and
Yeah.
yeah, like what was that like?
So when it first came out, what had happened, it was a little bit like the uncertainty, right? Of like, what have I done? Have I just lost my money? Because I was a little bit, my spidey senses were tingling the whole time, but not enough for me to not do it, right? Like I was like, because I checked into the publisher, I'd looked at, like it was all legit, but there was still something that I was kind of like, there's something I need to be aware of here. So I had gone for the payment plan for the book option rather than the pay in full, because I'm just kind of like, I'm just going to go with the payment plan. So if things, I can stop those payments, right? Like I've got control over that. And I'm glad that that's what I did. But then when it all kind of came out, and it was quite interesting to see the different reactions from the different women in the group as well, because we had a group of about 15 of us who were all contributing to this book, who were all affected by it. Because this guy had basically run off with all the money we had paid, which should have been paid to someone else and gone to the publisher and all the back end side of things. And the response from different people was really interesting to watch, because I was kind of like, that's pretty crap. But at the same time, the publisher had just like, they stepped straight in. So they were like on top of it. There wasn't a lot of space where it was kind of like, oh no, what's going to happen with this project? It's going to fall over. Like they were amazing. And so that filled me with a lot more confidence, because I'm kind of like, well, you've got the head of the publishing house jumping on a Zoom with you to tell you everything's going to be okay. Like we're going to proceed with the book, like it's still happening, don't worry. But then even with that, it was so interesting to see, because some of the women just took it so personally, pulled out of the project, even though they were not asked to, like no one had to put in any extra money. It was kind of like, if the money, like the money's gone, but you've paid it. So we're still, the publishing house was like, we're just going to honor it with what you've paid. If you haven't finished paying, like finish paying it to us. So they kind of worked it out on a case by case basis. But the response that some of the women had was just like, I can't believe this has happened. It's so dodgy, like I'm out. And so they took it as very much as the exit, and they just, like, they didn't get their money back. There was no refund available because the money was gone. And it's, but so they just were like, well, I just don't agree with how this has happened, so I'm not even going to be a part of it. And it's kind of like, but the person who's done the wrong thing doesn't even have anything to do, like third party, totally unrelated,
Yes.
not even connected to anything going forward. But it was just so much of like, can't believe this has happened, can't go on with this, and totally took it as an out and did not end up finishing their chapter, didn't go into the book, didn't happen. And then there were other people who were just so focused on the money, and it was just like, but I paid this much and I haven't paid that much, and now this other person's got my money and that's totally unfair. And I was kind of like, it's dodgy. I'm not impressed by it, because I've
Let's just acknowledge that.
But at the same time, I'm like, but the people who are responsible for producing the book are still going to do it. Like it's all still going ahead. Yes, that money's not gone where it should have gone, but I'm not out of pocket anything more. The book's still happening. Like, why would I not go ahead with that? Like, so there was this opportunity for it all to implode, and some people took advantage of that implosion. And it was definitely a point of like, do I want to proceed with this? Because we were all given the choice of like, if you want to go ahead, we're going to go ahead with it. But if you don't want to go ahead, like that's fine too. No contractual, like we're happy to terminate contracts and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it's just always interesting to see, like you were touching on, like just before the success comes or before the the manifestation of something, right? There's always that challenge and that kind of like, here's this situation that you've either got to navigate through or you use it as a roadblock and run in the other direction and kind of like, oh, can't go
Yeah.
now.
And I think it's so awesome, just that contrast of what you were talking about. You were focused on the book, the end result of the book, and
Mm.
what it was going to be, right? And
Yeah.
everyone else went to the money, or that's dodgy and
Yeah.
far out, and what's going to, that's just wrong. But and totally forgot about what the actual thing was about, which is the book and the creation.
Yeah. And just the ability, and like they weren't wrong. We were scammed. The wrong person had the money. Like these are all very legitimate feelings and very clear conclusions to draw. But it's like focusing there is not, we can't change that. Like that's
Mm,
happened. And yes, you can put through your complaint through PayPal or Wise or whatever it was, however people had paid to try and get money back and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like we can just it's just happened.
mm.
Like like it shouldn't have happened. No. Is anyone happy that it happened? No. But does it matter? like
Yeah, yeah.
like yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit too blasé about these things.
Yeah, no, but you know what? It's kind of that innocence. It's not, it's the wrong word. The innocence, being able to hold that, like, okay, if I wasn't carrying my stuff and my weapons here from and then my triggers, if I was just to drop all that and just look at what, because that's what how you explained it. Okay, yes, that happened, but still got the publishing house, still got the book. They want to go. It's very objective rather
Mm,
than, oh, in the, they did a dodgy thing and that's pressing my buttons around this, and this. And, it just, you actually give yourself a shot to create whatever you want out of it moving forward if you can
yeah.
see it from that angle.
And even at the time, like I was in a really stressful job, like I was working stupid hours. I'm a single mom. I also had just been diagnosed with viral fatigue. So like I wasn't well, I wasn't healthy. I had massive pressure at work, single income, single parent, so like everything all at the same time. Then this extra thing of the book ended up being half a scam and not a scam at the same time. And it's kind of like I could totally take the out because I could handle having one less thing on my plate right now, right? So, but it was like, but it was so ingrained in me that doing this book was true for me that
Mm, yes.
taking the opt out wasn't really actually an option. Like,
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that you brought that up because this is the one of the linchpins. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's one of the key points of like creativity. When it's true for you, you don't. And when you know it is, it's like it's the ultimate leverage over your ego, over any obstacle. It's like, well, no, I tuned in and it was a yes, so I'm not just going to leave it. It's because it's just that assumption that there's magic on the other end of this that I can't see yet, which I'm assuming you had.
yeah. And it was like, I
Mm,
didn't know what was going to come of it. I didn't know. I mean, now we're almost 12 months more down the track, and I can see how things have unfolded so beautifully since then. Um, and even like somebody in one of the groups that I'm in on Facebook, someone the other day was like, what book has been most influential in your business? And I just wrote the book that I wrote
mm,
because
mm,
it's flowed on to have all of these other like positive impacts as a result of writing that first book. And it's kind
mm.
of like, it wasn't to promote my book. And I didn't even say what the title of the book was because that wasn't the point of the, like my response to that, right? Like they're like, what book has impacted your business the most? And it's like, well, the book that I wrote has actually had the biggest impact, not something I've read
Mm.
or taken on from someone else. I mean, there's lots that I have read that has impacted me in big ways, but it's kind of like by saying yes to that opportunity and taking that first step,
Yeah.
that's ended up having so many more flow-on effects that I couldn't have created without writing that first book.
Yeah. And you couldn't have known that, as you were saying, when you were embarking out on it. So obviously, like, okay, so you've got the publishing house supporting you, assuring you we're going ahead, we're going ahead. You know, it's in your heart, it's a yes. Were there other like so that's happened, that bombshell dropped, but were there some other things that you were kind of leveraging off as wins or signs of momentum to help, just carry out the completion of that project?
Well, it was the heart connection that was coming through as well, right? Because I had so much other stuff happening at the time that I felt very much victim to, right? Like stuff at work, you kind of just like in this reaction respond, kind of getting washed around by like all the events of life that you've still got to go through because you've still got to live, right? But then it was like the book was like my lifeline to my heart, because it was kind of like I can't
Mm,
control what's happening at work. I can't control kids throwing tantrums. I can't control, like there's so much that I couldn't control. I couldn't control my health. Like I was just at a point where I needed to like step back from that in a way. And everything had kind of like culminated to this point where I just was like I just had to see things through, right? Like I couldn't quit. I couldn't, well, I ended up quitting, but I couldn't, I had to like just hold these other things up. And that was like using so much of my energy. But then it was like the book and the writing the book. And that was my connection back to my heart. And kind of like
mm,
that's what's actually like keeping me sane through everything else that is happening.
mm, mm.
So it was kind of being able to connect to it in a way of kind of like this is the future I'm choosing, is going down this route of writing and connecting back into that, rather than maintaining my career and juggling this stressful, crazy, busy life. Like that I don't want that anymore. But
Yeah.
I was still in that space. And so it's kind of that like connecting to who I was becoming rather than resigning myself to where I was at. And so it was kind
Yes.
of like my connection that kept me sane through a whole lot of other stuff that I was just having to navigate through.
That's so powerful. There's so many things that you're just dropping in there as you were talking. But the first obvious thing is because, I hang out with quite a few musicians, and it's like, the common thing I hear is, I've got so many unfinished songs and I just don't know what I'm doing with this. And I don't know what this song will become. Right. So
Mm,
I was writing a song with a friend of mine in London, and we're in Hyde Park, and she's like, I just don't know where this is going. And you can hear there's a lot of expectation. Will
mm,
this be a radio song? Is this an album song? Is this, is this? And here you are, you've just gone, well, this is for my heart, and this is me connecting back into my heart. And you're moving through with all of these other challenges. And it's just so obvious that the creators that don't put the expectation on what I'm going to get out of it, the payoff,
yeah,
they get to completion. And the ones that do, it's always these roadblocks and these challenges just get the better of them.
yeah, definitely. And it's been also kind of like I was still mindful that I was writing for an audience, right? Like it
Mm,
wasn't just writing for myself. Like there was an intention behind the writing, but at the same time, knowing that it was kind of like leading me somewhere else, and just
mm,
kind of like, and not even knowing what that was. And yeah, even that first book itself, look, I'm happy for it to disappear. I'm not like, again, like it's not I'm like, what, people are enjoying reading that? That's weird to me. But it was, that book I think was about stepping into the next chapter,
mm,
the book pun. Because of what it's opened up and where it's gone to now. Whereas if I hadn't done it, like we wouldn't even be here having this conversation now, right?
yes.
Um, but it was a stepping stone. It
Mm,
wasn't an amazing piece of work. It wasn't my best work. It wasn't, and I didn't give it my best because of everything else that was happening, but I still finished it.
mm, mm,
Right. So I still got through it. Would I have given it more time and energy and effort, given the time to like write it again? Yes. Would I have liked
mm,
to have done it differently? Yes. But at the
mm,
same time, it was kind of like I know I need to do this. I know I need to finish it because it's the next step to where I need to be going. And so now it has opened up the doors, and now I can enjoy writing with a lot more space and more clarity because, and again, like it's going into that unknown because I hadn't published a book before. Writing for publication is totally different to writing for yourself, or even just writing for a small audience, or kind of in a way of, oh, I'm just going to write this heartfelt piece and put it on Facebook or whatever, right? Like it's a totally different,
Yeah.
I'm writing this, an editor's going to see it, a publisher's going to see it, it's going to be available for the whole world to buy. That's
Yeah.
a very soul exposing moment, especially when you're writing like a personal story, right? So because it
Yeah.
was a personal piece of my life. And now it's easier doing that though. So with this next book that we're writing, like I wrote with so much more ease because I had dealt with a lot of that tension of kind of like, other people are going to like read this and other people are going to find out about my life. And yeah, so it's kind of moved into a space of actually, it's like ripping the band-aid off, and it was kind of like, we can just
Yes.
pretend that doesn't exist now, and move on to the better versions and the better products. But it's like that thing that comes with practice, right? You've got to keep doing it to get better. And
Totally. And it's so true. When you first bare your soul to the world, it's like you feel like you're gonna die.
yeah,
It's like, oh my God, they're gonna find out about my stuff. And it's like you do it. And then the next time, okay, that was cool. Yeah, still felt a bit whatever. And it
yeah.
just gets better and better. I did want to ask you, so you through that first book, did you have a structure that you were using when you were writing, or did you just kind of go, well, I'm just going to write my story and how it comes out and flows, that's how it is? Or
I had a loose structure that I was working with, but it was very much based on an intellectual structure. So
okay.
kind of like your beginning, your middle, your end. You
Yeah.
develop the story, introduce a problem, and then move on. And I didn't love writing that way. Like I learned this
Mm,
in the process, because it felt really unnatural. But because I was putting pressure on myself because it was going to be published and it's going to be
okay.
like this, like even now, like I feel so vulnerable about that chapter. I just like, I don't even want people to read it, right? So like, do not go buy that book. Wait for this
Yeah.
the next one that's coming out in October.
Yeah.
Please buy that.
Yes. Yes.
But it's because I don't think I ended up expressing myself as genuinely as I like. If I wrote it again now, I would write it totally differently, right? Because I was putting these expectations of, well, this is what a publisher would be expecting to see. This is what the world's expecting to read. This is the structure I should be using.
Mm, mm,
And I totally threw that out the window for this next book. So, which I had much more fun writing. I've enjoyed it a lot more. And I'm actually really excited for it. Whereas the other one, even now, right, I'm still nervous about people reading that.
yeah. 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 So intellectual, and I'm assuming this as if by magic
Yeah.
being the thing, you wrote it very intuitively.
Yeah. So just totally tuned into the end result. What did I want people to be feeling, thinking? What
Mm,
action did I want them to take when they finished reading it? Um, kind of what questions did I want them to be asking themselves, even like kind of like I want to leave. For me, it was about leaving people wanting to know more.
mm,
So kind of
mm,
like, how can I craft my story in a way that shares, but drops threads like breadcrumbs for more?
mm,
Yeah.
I love that. Where the obvious thing as you're talking is intellectual is about the process. It's like, okay, right, process, tick, 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 tick. And intuition, it's like you're dropping the anchor in the ocean. That's what it's about. That's where it's at. And that is what's driving my writing, nothing else.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say someone is in the position where they've done something, they've written something, put it out, and they're listening to this and they're going, "Oh, that sounds good," right? Intuitively, it sounds like there's more juice in that. What would you say to someone that wants to learn to write in that way? What would be your pieces of advice to start
Um,
going down that route?
Send me a DM and I'll send you the
Yeah.
course. So because I ended up creating, so for this, as if by magic, I ended up putting together a 4-hour workshop for the authors that have been involved in it. About writing intuitively, using intuition to get over writer's block, and being able to kind of connect back into the end result, and also using the hero's journey as kind of like a structure for sharing a personal story, because we can have the hero's journey. I know you're familiar with it, but kind of like the hero's journey is a process that people go through on a micro level and a macro level for events in life and life itself, right? So our whole life is one big hero's journey, but then as we're navigating different circumstances and situations, we have kind of little micro experiences of the hero's journey as we're going through life. And kind of this is the foundation of great story writing. It's the foundation of a lot of movies, all movies, and it can be applied in a nonfiction and a fiction context as well. So kind of being aware of that structure, and even in my own writing, so within this book that we're doing, like having the awareness of that structure, but I wasn't wedded to having to go through that process, but knowing it as a foundation, I think is really helpful in story development and in sharing a story, even if it's verbally, right? Like, because you're going through a process and there's an opportunity and then there's a challenge, and kind of like we've been unpacking that a little bit today, right, as we've been talking. So kind of understanding that process and then being able to use like hooks through that process
Mm,
um, is very helpful,
mm,
even if setting an end result is difficult, because sometimes you can set an end result or have an intention for the end, and that's like big and overwhelming.
mm,
Kind of like,
mm.
I can see that and I want that, but I'm a really long way back here. So how
Yeah,
on earth do we get
yeah.
to there? And so kind of being able to have little hooks to move towards, like as you using your anchor analogy, like you've put the anchor out, but then kind of the steps of the hero's journey can kind of like be your little buoys or buoys for our American friends
Mm.
along the way to the anchor. Like they're the bits that you're going to catch onto, and then you've got another hook, and then you kind of like move to the next one. So having a structure, but without, I don't know, for me, it's not being wedded to it either. Like if I don't have
Yes.
tick, 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 like I don't need the tick, tick, tick. It's kind of like, is it flowing? Are we hooking? Are we moving? Then
Mm.
yes. That didn't at all answer your question. I'm sorry.
No, 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 but it has, because I want to reflect how writing intuitively for the as if by magic has had that for me. I've written songs. So actually, I'll compare it to the first book I wrote, Salesman the Smuggler. That was intuitive, but I was very like, does this make sense? Does the story make sense? Which you never ask. You just don't ask it, because it's not meant to. But because if it makes sense, people have read it before in another movie or book, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't, it's kind of left them out in their imagination. So, oh, this is different. But this, what that book didn't have when I wrote that, and what writing as if by magic has had so far, has been you're going towards this end result. You're creating the hero's journey, but there's this element of surprise as
Mm.
you're like, oh, we're going here, and oh, this way, and then you head along a track that for a while. You go, oh, yeah, that makes sense why I'm writing that, but that you're still surprised by what you're writing. You don't, and this isn't me saying I was impressed by it and going, oh, this is just smacked it out of the park, but it surprised me, and that's kind of my reference point when I'm writing into it. That's how I know. I don't know if
Mm.
it's the same for you. It's just this un, um this unexpected is happening
Yeah.
as you're going.
Well, and it is. And I mean, even authors like J.K. Rowling, and uh, who wrote it?
Oh, good question.
Yep.
Oh,
But you know who I'm thinking of?
yes, yes,
Oh, how has his name escaped me?
yeah,
Famous author whose name is
yeah.
just
If you
totally
know who wrote it in the comments, please.
um I'm just Googling it now.
No, it's escaping me.
Stephen
Escaping.
King.
Stephen King. Oh God,
Um,
big
yeah, so
names.
Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, they didn't know what they were writing. They don't sit down and like if you research into them and their writing styles, they write intuitively. They don't know what the book is going to be about. They start writing and it surprises them in their character development and their plot development as they go along. Um, so it's not that authors sit down with like a structure of this is what chapter one's going to be, this is what chapter three is going to be, this is what chapter 10 is going to be. It's kind of like, let's start writing and see. And it's as, and I think having that awareness of the hero's journey, like that gives you an anchor to like kind of come back to, right? Like the structure to
Mhm.
bounce back to as you're going. But you've got space for characters to develop and for the storyline to evolve as you're
Mm.
going. And it's like you were saying, it surprises you as you're writing it, but it still kind of gives you kind of like the bumpers on the side of the bowling lane to kind of keep you've still got a lot of space that you can play in the middle, but it kind of like, oh, if we're going a bit too far over here, it's kind of like, oh, I might just need to nudge back a little bit. But it's not a hard and fast line, but it's just kind of just nudge back in a bit.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I love how you explain that. It's like there's structure, but then again, I don't want to be attached to it, so there's enough space, and
Yeah.
you know, like the Stephen King and J.K. Rowling, there's space for it to grow on its own. Um, so you finish this book, this first book, it goes out.
Yeah.
Were you were you surprised by what happened afterwards? But
Yes.
let's like it goes out and so you know sales and things start to happen and so you were surprised. What were you surprised about from the
Um, it became a bestseller. So in personal development and also journaling. So that was pretty like in a couple of categories. Which was pretty cool. And then kind of off the back of it, the opportunities that have come out, which I would not have, I kind of thought that it would be like, write the book, cool, little feather in my cap, something I've always wanted to do. So great opportunity, like jump in, take it.
yeah,
And then
pat
kind
yourself
of,
on the back, well done.
yeah, go
Yeah.
me, well done. You've got a published book now, move on with life, right? But now it's kind of turned into another book where now I'm the lead author and kind of like you're on board with as if by magic. It's turned into a solo book deal as well. So there's like other opportunities that have come out of it. There's been podcast opportunities that have come out of it. So promoting the book, promoting the work that I'm doing. And it's just opened up so many more connections and collaborations that I would have never had I not done the book in the first place. So that's where I'm kind of like the book itself can just disappear. It's been a stepping stone.
Yeah,
We can now just move on and build from it, right? Like it's a foundational piece that needed to happen,
so good.
but it doesn't need to be held up as the flagship of my life at all.
Yeah, and that's just so powerful about creativity because you just don't know what the payoff will be if there will be a payoff. Sometimes there's
Yeah.
not, and that's also fine.
But I
But
think
yeah,
I was also okay with that too. Like, had that been all it was, that still would have been really cool.
yeah, yeah,
Because it was never going into it with like well, if I do this, then it's going to open up all these other opportunities, right? That was never the expectation or the pressure I put on myself or the
yeah.
project.
Well,
Was like,
that really resonates with me in the sense that, like, I look back at when I was writing rap music, and I'll never forget after the second album, my intuition said you're finished, and now you're going into this genre. Made no sense. I've got these fans, and it wasn't a massive fan base, but it was a start in 2 years, and I'm like, I could build something off this. And it was like, but what's my payoff? And at
mm,
that time, I couldn't see it, so there was no there were some popular songs and stuff that I had, but it wasn't clear. But looking back now, writing rap music kind of conditioned me, if you will, for everything that literally everything that I do now with my business, my music, and my writing. Me improvising. Like I've got some questions here, but me improvising when I teach and do my podcast, I mean, rap.
Yeah.
That's the game. Story. I express myself way better that now because of rap, because I kind of had that first, here's my soul, see
Yeah.
it. I'm able to do that in writing because of it. But, at that time, even when it was done, it was like, God, I've just wasted 2 years of my life. No, you didn't, but you had to wait to see it. So yeah, biggest takeaway I've had from your story thus far is just, you got to launch in when you know it's true.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know what you'll get.
Who knows where to go?
Yeah. So we're getting towards the end, Lucy, but I've got a segment that we're going to do to finish up. Very powerful segment, and it's got a cool title, guys. You're going to be blown away by the title. Said with a lot of sarcasm. Rapid Roundup is the segment name.
Say it again. Say it again. I was too busy laughing.
Rapid
Roundup.
Roundup.
Okay.
And I do this because it's you obviously would have done a completion on the book, but I'm a big believer in when you complete something and then you go through this little process, there's always golden nuggets. So from that first book, what's my first question to you is, what did you learn? And then after that, what was one thing you let go of? And well, you've already answered, what did you create? But we'll go with what's coming next. So what'd you learn, what'd you let go of, and what's coming next now?
So what I learnt was that publishing is not as scary as I thought it was. And it's a lot more achievable than I had previously realized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was the next bit? I have a terrible.
What'd you let go of?
What did I let go of? After it was published, I let go of it. Like I think letting go of it being a thing, because it's become a stepping stone, right, for everything else that's come. But I had to let go of it having to be the defining moment.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Because it's not like I'm still not going back, like, go buy this book, go buy that book. Like, everyone needs to read this book. This book is amazing. Go read this book. Go read this book.
Mm.
I've let go of the book
Mm.
because it's given me so much more than the book itself.
Oh, that's powerful. That's so powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah. So much I want to echo there. And that's why you got to put your work out, because if you don't, it's always, oh, well, what could this be? And oh, should I do it or should I not? And you're just not moving forward. Yeah. Amazing. I don't know if anyone else just found that so profound, but I did. That's why I'm kind of just sitting here going, wow, that's really cool. Okay, yes, back to the show. And obviously we've alluded to As If by Magic. So do you want to give everyone else a bit more of a spiel of what that's all about?
Yeah, so As If by Magic is going to be coming out very soon. And it is a collection of stories from people from different backgrounds, different life experiences, and how they've applied intuitive principles and the results that they've had in their life. So we've got a broad range of ages. We've got men, we've got women, we've kind of got people who've lived in cities their whole life. We've got rural people, like we've got quite a spread. We've also got quite a big international spread. So we've got America, we've got Africa, we've got Ireland, we've got Australia. So we've got a very large background of people kind of contributing how they have applied intuitive principles and the outcomes that it's had. And we've kind of got examples of um, love, we've got examples of money, we've got examples of just like learning to love life. And it's just a really powerful collection of stories, kind of like how universal these principles can be and how when it's like applied and followed, the results that come as if by magic.
Very
So
excited. Yeah. Yeah, I'm
very cool.
very, very excited for this book to come out. And for people that are interested in the work that you do now as well with your coaching and everything, do you want to give them a little bit of a background as to what that's about and where they can find you too?
So best place to connect with me is on Facebook. Lucy Kobier will find me. I'm the only one in the world. So that's easy. Yeah, so we've got lots happening in the other space as well. So we've just kind of launched a new program called Intentional Disruption, where we're going at kind of disrupting lives and recreating realities, but from a positive foundation. So instead of waiting until life collapses around you and you're facing a divorce or a redundancy or having to sell your home or financial pressure or whatever it is, because anyone who has been in any of those situations, I'll just put my hand up about 20 times, coming out of it emotionally is really hard, coming out of it financially is really hard, coming through those like situations themselves is really hard. And it's kind of like, but you end up reevaluating your life. The end result is you end up reevaluating your life, realizing that perhaps that really stressful job wasn't what you really wanted to do with your life, realizing that that relationship maybe wasn't the best one you should have been in anyway. But so intentional disruption is kind of like, well, let's intentionally disrupt. Like, let's not wait
Love
for the
that.
forced disruption until shit hits the fan and then we've got to figure out what the hell we're doing. Let's go and listen to that little niggling in voice inside of us that's kind of saying, I'm meant for more, or I feel like there's more to life than what I'm doing.
Mm,
And let's tune into that and do it when you're not an emotional wreck, and
mm.
create something powerful.
That's amazing. I feel like that's another podcast episode. Maybe definitely for the future. But that's brilliant, and we'll link up all the
Yeah.
things in the show notes.
But Facebook is
Um,
the best way to find out about what's happening because it's kind of evolving and happening a lot differently, changing often, frequently. That would be good words to use.
Amazing, amazing. Yes, and yes to all that. That's very true. And I just want to echo what you said about intentional disruption because I just love that. I've seen you promoting that recently. Now I've got a really good understanding of it. It's so important that you're there consciously going, well, I want to. I know I'm not where I'm at, so let's break shit so I can do the new thing. Because a lot of people don't realize it's a very important part of getting what you want. You got to break the old. You got to
Yeah.
let that go. Um, and most people, as you said, they'll wait and just go, oh well, now that it's fallen apart, not by my own choosing, I kind of got to do something about it.
Yeah.
That's never nice. So yeah, very very powerful what you're doing there.
Yeah. So very exciting.
All right. Well, Lucy, thanks for joining us. Very appreciative of your time. And yeah, I'm looking forward for As If by Magic to get out there.
It's going to be awesome. I'm excited for it.